Grow your practice, grow your wealth, grow your impact. Find out how to spend less time in the dental chair and more time on the things you love.
Welcome back to the Dental Wealth Podcast. Maffei here as always. With me in the studio today is Eric Morin. We got a lot of great concepts to talk about today. I'm excited for this podcast.
I'm excited too. We just had a good weekend, right? Good weekend event. A lot of doctors from all over the country. It's getting crisp in the air, right? It's fall. Everyone's dressed at the office today in their Halloween garb. I guess I didn't. I guess we didn't play along, Matthew.
That's to come later.
You should just see if you're videoing it. I think you can throw like a wig on or something really quick and then just take it off or something.
Reese could Photoshop us.
Yeah, what's my?
I should have just worn my helmet right
there. You go.
Should have just thrown that on.
That's right. I'm a football player.
We also have a big game this weekend.
Oh yeah,
big game for our sports fans here.
Yeah,
so the next podcast, Eric and I will either be very happy or very sad.
The tempo of the podcast will be debated based on the game. Yeah, but the Braves are in the World Series, so hey, look.
Game 1 tonight. For those of you listening, this is next week, so hopefully the Braves are ahead in the series. So we're gonna see what happens.
We're pushing it out there. By this time you listen to this podcast, we're way ahead in the series.
We might even have won the World Series by this time.
If the dental wealth thing doesn't work out, we can always go to the sports radio thing, right?
I like it. We can always talk about that.
Well, I think our thousands of listeners might be a little bit upset if we switch over to sports. But here we are, another great week, right?
We are. And we had, as you said, we had a lot of great doctors come in for our foundation workshop. And I want to touch on some of the things that we were covering. I know we had a lot of questions about numbers in this podcast. We had a great group that really wanted to know like what numbers they should be looking at. And I know coming this week, you have, your leaders level, you're the best of the best doctors coming in, and you're going to be going through some numbers and some case studies. So I want you to talk a little bit about, what numbers, what kind of case studies you're going to be presenting to them and what they should be looking for as a dental practice as a whole.
Well, I mean, I'll turn this really, quick into the professor, mathematical podcast really quick if you let me.
Get out your calculator.
Get your Excel. Get out your calculator. It'll be like a YouTube video. It'll be like we'll start doing discounting cash flows on the podcast. We'd probably lose every single listener.
Right. You'll have to watch it on YouTube because all the numbers will start flowing. It'll look like the Matrix. It'll look like the Matrix.
Well, I just think that I don't know if we can get into all the specifics. I'll kind of talk about that group that you mentioned it, and we've talked about it before. But I think that the idea is that I was on a call with a CFO recently, a large CFO of a large dental organization, and even speaking to that CFO, I realized he is what is a CFO these days? Do you actually are we doing analysis, right? Investment bankers in this sort do analysis, and while that term investment banker sounds very complex, right? It does, right? You picture an Ivy League graduate going to some large investor banking institution, but we can do mathematics, and we should be doing math. One of my biggest problems with this industry is that, when I got into it, I was like, why is nobody doing math? We started having, it was interesting. You'd have supply reps say things like, you should buy this scanner because look at the ROI. You get it in 1 week or whatever. And it's like, no, that's not how that actually works. I know you have an undergrad in communications, but let me explain to you how actually it really works. Okay. All right. That was harsh. Okay. But
yeah, I think it could be because, when you get in the dental world, you're not really taught the business aspect of it. So when you start a business, generally speaking, that's going to be an entrepreneur that has a business background. So they're going to know that probably numbers are very key. Whereas a dentist, when they go into business, they probably think patient care is the key.
Well, it's interesting. I think people are moving to the point where they understand C-suite now, and they understand, look, I got to get a C-suite in place. But there's a difference in organization between, and I want you to think larger, there's a difference between a controller and a CFO. And a controller is someone in an organization who's really dealing with more of like the bookkeeping type stuff, the accounting and those types of things. It's more of a controller's role. Well, the CFO's job is to analyze investment decisions and then report back. Now, one of the things we can do is to analyze two like investments and sometimes two practices. The ability to discount future cash flows and understand how to discount future cash flows. That's what they call it, by the way, when you're analyzing businesses, is discounting cash flow, because you got to understand that there is a period of time within that revenue is going to be coming in. There's an EBITDA associated with it, and then there is what they call a terminal value as well, which means that we can't assume that that cash flow is going indefinitely. So we assign what's called terminal value. Now, I don't want to get into too complex of terms because I'll lose half the people. But I do want people to understand is that when someone says to you, sits down in front of you and says, so let's go back to CERC, really quick. People that know me know that I don't like CERCs, and I don't like them because I'm a financial guy. And, if you do the math on a CERC, there's no other word for it. It's shit. It's garbage. It's beyond a poor investment. And I've had dentists come back and say, I love my CERC. Don't talk bad about my CERC. It's almost like they got tattooed with CERC on their, whatever. I've got 22 mils in my office and, we love them. I didn't say you didn't love them. Whether you love them doesn't mean it's a good investment. It's a bad investment. Yeah. We use ours. Well, I don't care if you use it or not. It's still a bad investment. Because if you look at the future cash flows, the true net cash flows of a mill, you'll see that comparatively, now you might have a present value calculation of a CERC that shows you that it's a positive, which ultimately means in business that you should move forward. But it's the comparison that gets you in trouble. It's not that it's not by itself. If you want to analyze a CERC by itself and say, well, that's a good investment, it's not that you can't find that math and make that math work. The problem is that it really is a depreciating asset that does not have much cash flow in it, okay? So you're buying a depreciating asset which has limited returns, and then 5 years from now, the damn thing's antiquated anyhow. They tell you have to go get the new version, right? And then they'll give you some money back for your old version, and then if we look at that, okay, this is why I get frustrated about it. Now by itself, we could justify maybe opening up chair time and We could find a way to justify this calculation. With that said, if I start analyzing it against almost any, including a team member, investment within a practice, you'll find it has very limited ROI. Very limited ROI. I could hire a front desk person and blow by the ROI on a CERC. So now, I don't know. I might have just lost like 15 sponsors or something by saying this, but it's just true. And so when we start looking at practices and we start analyzing investments, because, even the CFOs, I've talked to multiple CFOs in this industry, and I find that even the CFOs that I speak to, a lot of them aren't actually analyzing investments. Why? Yeah. Because in the industry, the tolerance for CFO, the word CFO is low, like it's a low threshold, right? If you kind of know, because of financial math, is limited in this industry typically, and investments are limited, then what ends up happening is there's not a high threshold. But I would tell you that you have to increase your financial acumen. There are calculations, like I said, we'll go through with this with my group the next few days, but we'll look at case studies. So one of the greatest things you can do is why MBAs go through case studies. You go through MBA case studies because what you want to do is you want to utilize that math and then apply that math and say, okay, this is the formulas we use. You can use Excel. This isn't, whatever. So we get use Excel and you can drop in some calculations really quickly that can take you 10, 15 minutes. And those calculations, to be fair, can save you millions. Or make you millions. Maybe that's a better way to say it. By knowing the math behind that and dropping it in. Between looking at two EBITDAs, between two practices, looking at the factors that go behind those two practices, just like an investment banker would, right? An investment banker would look at two different businesses. They would analyze quite a bit of financial math, and then they would say, this is the right decision, right? Certified financial analyst might look at it. Hey, look, this is the reason why this decision is better than this decision.
And I love this concept because we touched on it a little bit on the last podcast, but it is the end of the year. You're going to have a lot of people approaching you saying, you need to put money here, you need to do this, you need to do this to save on taxes. And you have to know what the return is on each of these investments you're about to make in your practice. And we'll keep harping on this because I get the phone call all the time. It's, I just spent this much, and I know you get the phone call where people call up and say, I think I bought this, or I'm thinking about buying this. What should I do? So it's just, you need to have these people in place, whether it's a CFO or if you're not at that ability yet to have a CFO, that you're looking at these numbers because they're going to start approaching you like sharks in the water.
Yeah, you got to be able to analyze. The point of this conversation is that you need to learn financial math, right? That you don't need to be a certified financial analyst, and you don't need to be a CFO. And in fact, I was explaining to somebody. Someone asked me recently about an MBA, and I said, look, a lot of the programs are designed for non-business majors. The whole point is you don't need to be an actuary, but you need to understand statistics. You don't need to be an accountant, but you need to understand financials, right? You don't need to be a marketing expert, but you certainly need to understand acquisition cost. These are things that the marketplace is having low tolerance for ignorance. I'm saying that again, even though that sounds harsh. The marketplace has low tolerance for ignorance. And that sounds kind of like a jerky statement, right? It just whatever, the whole thing sounds jerky. But let me explain what I mean by that. I mean is that marketplace, today's marketplace, and where the marketplace is moving, has a low tolerance for ignorance, which means that the future marketplace it's just a way of saying the future marketplace is more advanced. And because it's more advanced, you have to look at kind of like a sigmoid curve of the marketplace and say, okay, well, the marketplace is moving here. And if I don't move, then what happens? And here's the thing, it's not enough to keep up these days. You can't just keep up. This is we saw Blockbuster try to keep up with Netflix. How'd that work out, right? Even, it's like Porsche, which, I'm a Porsche fan, but they came out with the Taycan because they were going to compete with Tesla. And then Tesla comes out with the Tesla Plaid, which just smoked the doors off of everything, right?
Yeah.
You never want to be the one following, right? You would have thought Porsche would have came out with the fastest electric vehicle, right?
Yeah.
But no, you start to go, well, shoot, the Taycan's a little bit sexier, but the truth is the Tesla Plaid is less expensive and will blow the doors off the damn thing.
Yeah. It's completely different business model. You got to start looking at, a lot of times they'll see, and then you'll know it because people will start calling you and say, well, my friend said we should do this, or my friend said we should do this, or I'm looking at the industry as a whole and they're doing this right now when it comes to their investments. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be looking at your practice.
First of all, don't compete, dominate.
Yeah.
Don't compete in an industry. Dominate in an industry. How do you don't try to keep up? It's one of the worst things you can do in a business is keep up with your competition. How do you get a level up, right? These doctors that are coming this weekend are getting a level up. I'd say 20 levels up. So you got to level up, right? You got to be at a different level if you're going to compete in this marketplace. And then who are you comparing yourself against, right? I think that it's very important to know who you're then competing against. And by the way, when we start analyzing investments, just something to think about is you're not adding risk.
Yeah.
Because let's just say you're going to spend $100,000. You're going to spend $100,000 on whatever you're going to spend it on. It didn't increase risk because you're always going to spend $100,000. It's just now the $100,000 has to be analyzed on the opportunity cost of the other decisions. And if you don't know how to analyze the opportunity cost of all those decisions, well, then who are you talking to, right? How are you guessing this? How are you making this decision? Is it a hunch? Is it, are you, what are you utilizing to get these decisions? Your buddy? We have to get to the place where I was just working through some things with our advisory team, and they were like, you should put this in a book, because it's almost like this is what the new standard is, right? There's a new standard. And by the way, that happens in all industries, right? There becomes a new standard. I would say that Tesla set the standard, right? Everyone's trying to keep up with Tesla's standard. Now, I just saw yesterday Tesla hit the $1 trillion mark, $1 trillion valuation, right? And so there's a standard set by Tesla. And now everyone's trying to keep up with it. But if you're Ford, or if you're Porsche, or if you're Lamborghini, or whomever you want to talk about, it's not about keeping up with Tesla. It's how do you fly by Tesla? How do you create something now, I will tell you, now I'm just trying to use an analogous example so that you understand what I mean. So Lamborghini came out last year, and Lamborghini CEO, I was reading some comments by him because I'm a business geek, so I listen to this stuff. And he said the 0 to 60 mile per hour, the 0 to 60 race is done. It's over. It is a done contest. I mean, 0 to 60 in 1.8 seconds or whatever the Plaid will do. I mean, 1,000. I mean, you can't even. Guys, the speed of that is just like.
Yeah.
I drove in one of just the ludicrous plus speed or whatever, and I would just be like, whew, right? I mean, the speed is just insane. So what Lamborghini came out and said was that we're going to focus on control. That everyone is going to be able to in the next decade hit a second and a half. Like everyone's going to be able to do it. It's that race has been done.
Yeah.
And so it's not going to be about 0 to 60. It's going to be about who can handle the curves at that speed, who can have the maneuverability. Now, why am I talking about this, and what the hell does that have to do with the dental practice? It means that what we do is we go back and we look at the old race. We go back and we have antiquated thoughts. We ask our dental friends that are in the same boat as us. We look at an industry that's saturated with the same thought process. We look at we look at justification for our actions based on our peer set. I'm trying to say is that if you're in the automotive industry and you're looking 0 to 60, you're in the wrong zone because you're not thinking about the future. Because the future, everyone's going to be able to go to 0 to 60 in 1.5 seconds. That's just the way it is. I mean, this technology, while it's great today, will be old technology in 5 years. It maybe won't even take 5 years. Okay, a damn Chevy will be able to go, to a second and a half. So you can't look at Tesla and say, well, let's just be Tesla. Let's try to do what Tesla's. You have to say, what's next? It's the same thing I'm saying about dental right now. You can't look at dental right now and say, where are we at today, and what is successful today, and how can I grow at today's level, and how can I look around my peer set? I said Tesla hit the $1 trillion mark. Tesla is the most valuable car company in the world. Come on. Had they looked at what Ford was doing and Chevy was doing and Porsche was doing and everybody else was doing, they'd still be in the middle of the pack. They said, F them, let's go do something that's completely different and innovative. When we get into, I'm telling you, even though in business it's not innovative, I'm telling you in the dental market, the analysis of financial investments within a business is next level in dental. I'm telling you, even CFOs in dental don't understand this stuff. And I know it sounds crazy. You're like, what? Yeah, trust me. I'm not going to go into conversations because I wouldn't want anyone ever to be offended. But that's not true. But I'm saying I want to offend anybody who might think that it had to do with a conversation I had or something like to that degree. But I do want you to understand is that is in this industry, people are not doing the financial math. And they don't know how to compare things financially. And because they're not doing that financial math, they're throwing away 8 figures and in some cases 9 figures because they don't know how to do the math. And if you don't know how to do the math, and if the primary focus that you've got is how to find flipping hygienist, then your mindset, that consumption of time and energy is in the wrong damn spot. It needs to be on how do I invest capital and how do I make the most out of that capital. And if you say, well, I don't have the time to do that because I'm in the chair all day, get the frick out of the chair or get someone else who can do this for you.
Yeah,
right?
or get somebody else.
Right, you don't have to do this. And now you say, Eric, come on, man, I got enough going on. I got my husband or wife's on me. I got kids that go to college. I got this going on, and I got 2 hygienists just quit. I just took out a piece of real estate. I don't got time to do all this stuff. Okay, that might be true. So then have someone help you do it. Then have someone do it for you, so that you can at least make the decision. We can outsource CFO. We can outsource these decision-making process. You don't have to, right? My clients pay me for this, but it's the same thing. I got a phone call recently and said, hey, listen, guy says, hey, I'd love to pay you $3,000 a phone call, and I'd love to talk, every month. I said, okay. Now it's the interesting part is in that first phone call for $3,000, and I'm not exaggerating on this. I'm $22 million. So, or something to that degree, right? It was a lot. It was, and so we look and we say, I've had people spend, $10,000 for 2 hours. And by the way, I'm not trying to be egotistical. It's not my point here. Please don't take that as the point. I've got people that pay me $10,000 for a few hours. I've got people who, pay me, $1,500 a phone, whatever it is. Okay. The whole point is, if I get on the phone with you and I make you, if you paid me $20,000 for 10 minutes and I made you $20 million, you'd have to say that's probably worth it, right? There's a lot of value there. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying you have to get on the phone with me. It doesn't have to be me. It can be someone on my team. It can be someone else who knows this stuff. That's okay. I know there's a lot of people listen to podcasts like this and they extract data, and that's great. If you're going to extract data, first of all, you have to make sure that your advisors are sophisticated enough to be able to pull out the data to be able to give you it back. That's so important to do. And then what ends up happening is you got to be able to then make the decisions based on also other factors as well. So I guess the point is you have to have an advisory team who knows the financial math, who can analyze financial math, be able to make decisions, and then based on those decisions, be able to help you multiply capital. Because, by the way, that's how you get to 20 million, 30 million, 40 million, 50 million. By the way, some people are listening to this podcast going, I just want to go to 2 million. Okay, that's fine. If you just want to go 2 million, that's fine. That's really easy. All we got to do is go boop, 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 right? Move some things around and you'd be surprised what happens.
Yeah. And I think even if you are 1 million going to 2 million, you still need to look at the numbers. I think oftentimes they just think, if I could just get a bunch of new patients, then I'll eventually get to the $2 million mark. Whereas there's a lot more numbers that you can be looking at that'll get you there a lot quicker. I love this podcast. I think, as we wrap this up, the key here is just,
we're 22 minutes in. I'm good for another 2 hours, Matthew. What are you talking about wrapping this up? We're 22:02 in. I'm telling you, I'm just getting fired up. What are you going to? Some Halloween party? Where are you going?
He got the Halloween potluck.
Hey, guess he's trying to get to the potluck. Get some what is that? Was that sausage dip with some Tostito scoops?
There better be a pumpkin in there. There better be pumpkin pie.
Some pumpkin pie. Hey, you know what? There is some pumpkin pie in there, dude. And you know what I bought with it? I got either some whipped cream. That's right. I brought some desserts. That's right. I said, I'm not dressing up, but I'll bring some desserts. So
I'll bring desserts.
I brought some desserts. I swung by and grabbed some desserts this morning. I got some nice whipped cream. Just eat that pie. It's that time of year. It's nice fall weather.
It is. We're approaching the November mark. We got lots of decisions to make, and we're about to have
my
some
investment
fun.
in my personal trainer has doubled in the last month because I'm going to need it.
You started looking at those reports. You're like, yep.
Yeah,
did a little case study.
That's the analysis that I've got to do is look at my waistline when it comes to the end of the year. In all seriousness, one of the things you said is, before this podcast, you and I were having a conversation, and you said, what kind of math do you do? Now, you guys might say, well, why don't you give me the exact calculations on a podcast? Well, it's pretty obvious, guys. Come on. Like, how am I supposed to do, true advanced math on a podcast? It would, first of all, I'd lose half of you in 5 minutes anyhow. You'd spend the next 2 hours looking up terms and definitions, and just here's what I'm trying to say on this, okay? And by the way, the information's not as hard to find as you think it is. Now, case studies and experience, that is, and how does it relate in this industry? That's hard to find. And, I've argued, not an ego to, look, I think I'm in a class of one, and I think our team is in a class of one. What I mean by that is the fact that, look, no one's doing the math that we're doing. It's just a fact. And, we have to, as an industry, be at a different level. And I'm an advocate for being at a different level. I'm an advocate for taking your business and to compete, not only to compete, but to dominate. You got to get an edge on everybody else. And I think so many people have been okay with just doing what everyone else is doing, going to a convention and then looking around and saying, I look like everybody else. Whew, I'm good. But if you really want to get to the next level, okay, whether you lean on Tower, I'd say you lean on somebody else, but I'm going to tell you right now, I could go to 5,000 dental conventions and the math I'm talking about won't be done. And you've got to get to a place where you can analyze business decisions within a business comparatively and know which one makes the most sense. The reason why that matters is because if one creates a tremendous amount of additional free cash flow, okay, that free cash flow can then be reinvested. That creates a compound effect within a business. That compound effect allows you to grow exponentially. As that starts to happen, so does your valuation, so does your net worth, and on and on and on. So I think it's important these days and age to say, do I understand how to analyze investments within my practice? If I was given two practices and I put them next to each other, would I be able to analyze the cash flows from both of them and know what to do? If I started to look at 5 options at one time within my practice as an investment, where would I put the capital? Should I be leveraging debt or should I be leveraging equity? Which one makes the most sense? What is the cost of debt? What is my current cost of debt? What is my current cost of equity? What does that actually look like? Is there a combination of the two? And if I do I know my weighted average cost of capital? And can I assume a certain amount of, growth rate and those types of things? And when we do that and we understand how to truly grow our business, then we can be in a position where we get to make better decisions. We turn away decisions that aren't for us, that aren't the right decision because of circumstances. We stop letting supply reps sell us stuff we don't need. And we don't buy,
don't buy off emotion.
Well, CBCTs, let's just talk about that one as we close out here a little bit. It's the same thing with CBCTs, okay? So the CBCT, what happened is everybody started buying them because they, were like, well, I'm going to do implants, But doing that is kind of like, to me, buying a car when you're 13 because eventually you're going to start driving. So why don't you learn how to drive first and then get the CBCT? And let me tell you why I'm saying that. It's just another example. That's a tremendous use of capital, but I want to tell you, I'm seeing a lot of them just sitting in offices doing nothing. They're kind of fun to play with, but there's no ROI on them because the fact that they're not actually being utilized to do cases that otherwise the practice wouldn't be doing. We've got to stop buying things out of emotion in a business and buying things based on analysis, and not just analysis, but the things that not just whether they have return, but what gives the most and best use. And by the way, team does that too, by the way. Just one comment about that. Team does that too. You might be investing in team, and team might be where you need to put your money. And that investment is going to allow you to then grow exponentially because a team investment should also have the same implications. You should be able to do the same thing with team members. So I would encourage you, if you don't know how to get this math or you don't know what I'm talking about, then reach out. Be more than happy to, our team will be more than happy to kind of bring you into a way we can help you. And if you say, well, I can figure this out on my own, then I wish you the best, but you've got to analyze this stuff. I'm just telling you, you as a CEO, now, if you're in a large corporation, you have a CFO that puts these things in front of you and says, here, CEO, here's our options. We can do A, B, C, or D. What would you like to do based on the vision of the company? If you don't have that, then you have to say, okay, well, I have to do it myself, or I have to outsource the math to somebody else. You still have to make the decisions as the CEO, but the options are to make it with the math or make it without the math. And, one's just gut and hope and a prayer. And the other one's, right, sound business decision-making process. Boom.
Boom.
And on that note,
Boom.
that's a good.
Yes. I mean, to end on that note, I mean, just stop. We hear it all the time. People like to buy off emotions, and that's kind of hard to do. I mean, you and I are very much emotional people, but sometimes we have to, we have to look at, the numbers behind it. I think, as the dentistry, as the marketplace and the medical marketplace in general becomes more sophisticated, as we start to see this trend, it's going to start becoming key to buy off of the analysis rather than the emotion. So thank you always for joining us, Eric. It was a great day.
Something to write down, put it on your wall, like buy out of analysis, not out of emotion. Like take that shit and put it up like on a big post-it note and put it in your office that you don't need. By the way, your office makes you no ROI. Get rid of your big old giant office and put an operatory in there instead.
Yeah, plumb it out and put an operatory in there.
You don't need it, by the way. I need a big office. How important am I? I looked at I was looking at the next door. I was looking at this guy. He's like a shrine to his CEO-ishness. I don't know. Making up words now, but like you don't need a shrine to yourself. Like you're in business to make money. You don't need a shrine. And so, so what is the ROI? That's a whole nother conversation. Get rid of your shrine to yourself. Like, oh, CEO, here's your big bookshelf and all the stuff that you have to feel important. You don't need all that shit. Like, look, it's got to have like wherever your office is, like, make decisions out of analysis, not about emotion. Make decisions out of analysis, not by emotion. That's a great way to lead this podcast. Take your office, your shrine, whatever you want to call it, pop it up on a Post-it note and look at it daily and say, look, well, make decisions out of analysis, not emotion. Go just use that as an example. Hey, look, I have this giant office out of emotion because it props me up, makes me feel important, and hopefully other people see me as important. What makes more sense is from an analysis standpoint, I don't need an office. In fact, I'm in meetings all day long. I'm jumping between things. I'm barely in here. Why don't we plumb this thing out and, make $30,000 a month in collections? And that would be a better use of, from a capital standpoint. And so, make decisions that way, and then enjoy the Braves winning the World Series. No, I don't know.
Put it in the atmosphere. The Braves have won the World Series.
The Braves have won the World Series. Congratulations, Atlanta Braves. If they don't, we'll get a lot of shit for this. But anyhow,
we're foreshadowing.
Enjoy, guys.
Yes, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Come and watch us, guys. We try to put on a great set for you. I know Reese does a great job over there. We're looking sharp, so give us a like, give us a subscribe, and then always, share the podcast. A lot of times we'll have doctors come up to us like, I just shared this with my best friend or my colleague that I graduated dental school with, and they love it. So, that's why we do this. We want to get the message out there. We want to help you guys grow, figure out what's changing in the marketplace. So like, subscribe, and as always, we'll tune in next week. So thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you, guys.